Hello and welcome back to Dare to Move Mountains. As we kick off 2025, I couldn't help but reflect upon 2024, kind of those lessons learned, what I did during the year, what I didn't do, and just kind of assessing what I want the next year to look like for Alana. And as I look back to my hiking activity, I realized I hiked about 670 miles in 2024. That was while working a full-time corporate job, so I wasn't hiking as much as I am at the moment, but still a lot of things that I took away, from that time. So today I want to share what I have learned hiking over 600 miles in 2024. So the first is, if you start early, you will be amazed at how much you can do. The second, pace yourself, so you versus you. Bring tons of water and snacks, whatever you're comfortable kind of lugging around with you. Kind of provides you with a psychological safety. When hiking in colder temperatures, or even if it's early in the spring or the summer, it's okay to feel cold when starting. You will warm up. If you're into cold plunging or any kind of ice therapy or anything like that, pack your suit with you. You never know where there will be a creek deep enough for you to kind of slip your way into, or a lake, or perhaps kind of be bold enough to chop away at some ice and just get right into it. Understand that your feet will likely always be in pain or sore, and you will just be endlessly healing from blisters on blisters. So yeah, just kind of jumping into that a bit deeper. So if you start early, you're not racing with the sunset, and especially in those colder seasons where you have less sunshine, start at 7 and you'll know that you have until about 5 to finish your hike. And for even some of those more difficult hikes, that's very doable, and that provides you with ample time and just peace of mind to make it in and out, or at least begin heading out and about 80% accomplished at that point. Pacing yourself. I say this because that you versus you, you're gonna have people who might be trail running, and just because they're running past you, you hold that pace. Or you're hiking behind someone, or someone's behind you and you're hitting an incline. Don't feel the need to press the gas, because you can exhaust yourself. And sometimes even I get that competitive itch, and I'm like, I should pass them, or I should keep up with them. But a lot of times, let's leave that ego behind, and in the car or the van or at whatever door you have that day, and do what you came to do. And as far as being cold, you'll be chilly. You're packing your gear, you're closing up your vehicle, you're figuring out where your trail begins, which way you want to go, and you aren't moving at your 80% pace, right? So you'll warm up, and I'm in a lot and someone just almost got hit. You will warm up, so no need to put all the layers on. Sometimes I'll just kind of have my gloves on, because my hands being really cold makes it difficult to open my pack and put my camera away, my phone away, and then eventually those gloves come off pretty quickly. Bathing suit. I'm into cold plunging. Me and Robert are very much into that type of thing. So bring the suit with you, because there's been so many times where I'm like, crap, I don't have my suit and I want to go in. How can I do this? And it makes for a more pleasant and seamless process if you have the swimsuit. Those feet, I have tried everything. Thicker socks, thinner socks, bigger shoes, tying the shoes tighter, even giving myself a day or two in between or after a really rough hike, with the hope that my feet will have some time to recover and then the next hike won't be as bad. But they hold up for some time, and then those same points that were raw or just achy and had ripped or blistered, they come back up, and you kind of learn that that discomfort is just a part of kind of like that process, and it comes with the territory. So just accept it, embrace it, understand like, okay, these are my feet, they're carrying me these long distances, and they're gonna complain, they're gonna react to this in some sort of way, and just gauge it. Obviously keep them clean, you don't want anything to get funky or infected, and sometimes there may be a point where you're like, all right, I've reached my limit, let me scale back a bit, or I can wrap them up and hit the trail tomorrow. Now when thinking kind of about what did Alana learn, what did I learn on a personal level after hiking over 600 miles in 2024? And I realized, what is this panic that I begin to feel when I don't have full stability on both of my feet at one particular point. So if I'm climbing across a ledge, if I'm climbing up a big boulder, typically walking across something like a metal railing, which we did in the Canyonlands, and there was ice. It was very short-lived, but wasn't too much a fan of that obstacle, but we did it. And I discovered that I have a fear of falling. Not of heights, of falling, because I have fallen before and broken an ankle. I was training and doing some Israeli martial arts, and I tore the ligaments in my foot. I flew off my speed bike and my feet were shot in, and I was concussed. So all of that, we all fall in life, especially when we're active, and even when the intention is not to be very active. But majority of times that I have fallen, they've been significant hits and blows to the head, and extreme blows to my level of trust in my ability to land properly, or just leverage my body in a way that will lessen or decrease the impact and the injury. So hiking a lot has taught me that you're gonna slip, you're gonna slide, you're gonna fall, whether it's ice or sand or some rock formation, and you kind of get a little bit more used to that feeling where it's like, oh crap, I feel like my heart just sank into my stomach, and like I froze, and I almost feel like a static shock across my whole body, almost like an electrocution that won't do as much harm. And yeah, so you will slip, you will fall. Just try to lean into it as much as you can. Don't resist it. That tensing up never served me well. When doing those in and out hikes, I've learned I prefer going up and then going down, as opposed to going down a canyon and then having to trek your way back up. It just hits on me mentally very differently, and I think that the down and then up is a little bit more of a more difficult battle for me personally. But when doing that, going down, I've kind of established this mantra. Going down, you're trusting your knees to stabilize you, right? And to help with that, some of that sliding and balancing. Heading back up or going up, you're really trusting your heart, your lungs, your kind of like your cardiovascular system, and your training and how many hours you've put in. Sometimes other sports can kind of get weaved in. A lot of it's really just exposure. How many hours have you spent hiking, and when's the last time you did it, and how frequently do you do it? I have also fallen in love with the concept of earning the view. So there are many short hikes that you can just, sometimes even views that you can just drive right up to, or even shorter hikes like Horseshoe Bend, which is about 1.5 miles. spectacular view in Arizona, in Page, Arizona. But I have grown to love earning it and working hard for it. And I can't say I love the feeling of practically dying and encountering a strenuous physical challenge while hiking up this mountain or this peak to this view, because there's a lot of why the hell did I do this, and like, oh my god, I'm never gonna hike again, and fuck, this is hard, and my knees hurt and my feet hurt and I can't breathe. But I just keep going back to it. So it is bittersweet, but you get up there and you're like, wow, like I feel alive. I feel this is kind of like an adrenaline kind of aura, and I worked for this and my body has brought me here, and it's such a beautiful thing to experience, which is why I keep doing it. I've also learned that some of my favorite hikes are in the most kind of like desolate and remote areas. So Arches versus Canyonlands, that video, I felt as though because Canyonlands wasn't as busy and had those longer hikes, I was better able to connect with nature. And I spoke to this in that Arches versus Canyonlands video that I made about a month ago. And for me, it's those areas that have not been civilized and are just untouched that really feel historic, they feel sacred, and it's really just you and nature. And there's kind of this trickle-in effect of, can I survive out here, which makes for another challenge, which I like. Then also when looking on AllTrails and filtering out for hard hikes, growing to understand that hard and difficult can vary greatly. So I mean, you have your distance, you have your high elevation, right? But then you also have, what's the terrain like? What kind of obstacles are we working with? Am I going to be crossing water? And if so, how frequently? Are my boots going to be drenched? Should I bring an extra pair of socks? Should I bring sandals? Is the water going to be deep to a point where more than just my feet will get wet? Am I going to be walking in sand, walking through snow? How well is the trail marked, or is it marked? Are we kind of just backcountrying it? And will I have to squeeze through narrow areas? So Peekaboo Canyon in Utah, at one point there was this railing, and you have to assess whether you, physically, your body and its structure, in addition to your backpack, whether you'll be able to fit. And we brought the dogs with us and our packs fully loaded, and there was a lot of just holding our backpacks in our hands and squeezing through, and breaking of things with trying to keep the dogs safe. Am I going to be climbing boulders? We're climbing under boulders. There was an experience in the Narrows. It's a video I'm currently editing and working on sharing with you all, where I had to climb under rocks to avoid going into more water, because at the time we were kind of anti-embracing the cold and we had our dry suits on, but we were like, all right, maybe we don't want to get too soaked on the way in, we'll embrace it on the way back. But there was like this rock, and I had about 3-ish feet, 2 to 3 feet of room to squeeze under it, which was cool. And learn there is, the more you hike, you realize elevation and distance are more about time, but certain areas require a bit more skill, such as balancing and navigation skills. Another one, which I am semi-embarrassed yet humble to admit, I learned how little I know about geology and landscapes. So when walking through some of Utah's national parks, like, to just think a lot of these rocks were underwater, and then kind of just being curious enough to play with the idea of, okay, well, what did that evolution and transformation look like? And I realized I didn't have a lot of the answers or knowledge to even entertain the idea very much. Led to further thinking about how certain things are formed, and certain plants and trees survive and some don't. What kinds of plants and trees grow in the area. Another good one to know is what animals live in the area. One that came with the territory also was how drastically weather can change due to elevation. So you're in the forest, you feel pretty warm. You start heading up, maybe there's more sun, less trees. You start heading up, less trees, some snow, and then the wind just hits you and you're like, all right, I'm gonna pull some of the layers out of my backpack. And then this one was a big slap in the face, and I was like, whoa, I don't believe any kind of preparation would have helped this experience. But there's how you can hike so damn high that the air is thinner, i.e. Pikes Peak. That elevation sickness was truly one of a kind. Maybe an oxygen tank could have been helpful. Some people do bring them up there with them when they're doing those 14ers, but I don't think that I'd carry one with me, which is dangerous. Let me know if you're one that does. But that elevation sickness lasted for about 2-3 days, and it felt like a hangover of a lifetime. And finally, just the difference of elevation across states. So you'll have your Colorado, where you have your high mountain states, and you've got those crazy peaks to climb, which are beautiful. Then you have desert, the Badlands, Utah, Arizona, which are a bit more flat, but they can make for those really long, euphoric kind of hikes where you just get lost in nature, and there's a different kind of mental euphoria that you experience as opposed to the physical one. But many things that I've learned hiking now, as I'm talking through this, it's really hitting me. Lots of miles, lots of states, lots of different terrain, slipping and sliding, crying, but definitely a much deeper trust in myself and my ability to navigate the world. So I hope that some of my lessons learned have sparked something within your mind or within your body that is driving you to kind of play around a bit more with uncharted territory, of course safely. Be mindful and reflect on hikes and what kind of shook you up and what felt natural to you, and just always question it on a personal level and ask yourself what that means for you. I want to conclude with this. 2024 set me up very, very well for this year. Lots going on, and I'm excited to see what we continue to discover and what challenges we intentionally enter into and which ones present themselves to us. But I kicked off the year hiking solo, my first solo hike. That's been lengthier than 5 miles and over maybe 1,000-foot elevation gain. But my first hike of the year, right after New Year's, the Grand Canyon. So the North Rim was closed, so I wasn't able to do rim to rim, but I did do all the way down to the canyon and up. It was about 14.8 miles and a little under 5,000 feet elevation. I did it in a day. It took me about 6 hours, and I am crafting up the content for that video, so that is headed your way.